I'd stayed up until 3 in the morning finishing that cake. My fingers were stained with food colouring, my back ached from leaning over the kitchen counter, and there were at least 15 failed attempts in the trash. But I'd finally done it. A 3-tiered vanilla lavender cake with hand-piped flowers, each petal carefully shaped to match the design I'd seen in Mum's favourite baking magazine. The one she'd circled months ago and left on my desk with a sticky note. Wouldn't this be gorgeous for your sister's engagement? I'd made it for my own birthday. Not hers. Mine. 23 years old today, and I'd spent the week before dropping hints that maybe, just this once, we could do something for me. Not a party, nothing extravagant. Just dinner, just the 4 of us. Just acknowledgement that I existed beyond being Rebecca's older sister, or Dad's backup plan when he needed someone to cover a shift at the family restaurant. "We'll make it special, honey," Mum had said on the phone 3 days ago. I promise. I'd believed her. I should have known better. The restaurant closed at 10. I'd texted them at 9:30. "Cake's ready. Should I bring it now or wait until you get home?" No response. I texted again at 10:15, at 10:40, at 11. At midnight, I called. "Oh, sweetie," Mom's voice was bright, distracted. "We're still at Romano's. Rebecca wanted to celebrate her engagement news with Antonio's family. You understand, right? It's such a big deal for her." My throat tightened. "It's my birthday." "I know, honey. We'll celebrate tomorrow, promise. Just leave the cake on the counter and we'll have it for breakfast." I stopped myself. Swallowed. "Okay. You're the best. Love you." The line went dead. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the cake I'd spent 5 hours perfecting. The flowers caught the overhead light, their lavender edges almost translucent. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever made. I texted Dad, "Should I wait up?" His response came 20 minutes later. "Getting late. You should sleep. We'll see you in the morning." I wrapped the cake carefully in the box I'd bought specifically for this, white cardboard with a clear window so they could see it immediately. I wrote, "Happy birthday, Jenny," on a card in my neatest handwriting and taped it to the top. Then I carried it out to Dad's car and placed it carefully on the passenger side floor, cushioned with my jacket so it wouldn't slide during the drive. I took a photo of it with my phone, sent it to the family group chat with a single message. "Ready when you are." No one responded. I sat on the couch and waited. I heard their car pull up at 2:15 in the morning, heard their voices in the driveway, Rebecca's laugh high and bright, heard the trunk slam, heard the front door open. "Oh, I'm exhausted," Mom said. "Long night," Dad agreed. Rebecca yawned. "I'm going straight to bed." I stood up from the couch. They jumped. "Jesus, Jenny." Rebecca pressed a hand to her chest. "You scared me." "Sorry." I looked past her to where Mum was setting her purse down. "Did you get my texts?" Mum blinked at me. "Oh, yes. Sorry, honey. It got so late." "Did you bring in the cake?" Silence. Dad froze halfway through taking off his jacket. Mom's expression went carefully blank. Rebecca glanced between them. "The cake," I repeated. My voice sounded strange, flat. "I put it in the car at 10, in the white box." More silence. "Oh, God," Mum whispered. "Wait, Robert, did you? I thought you... It's still in the car," Rebecca said quietly. I walked past them, out the front door, down the driveway. The night air was cold against my flushed face. I opened the passenger door of Dad's sedan. The box sat on the floor where I'd carefully placed it. 6 hours ago, before they'd driven to Romano's and parked in the sun-baked lot and sat inside for 4 hours while I waited at home. I lifted the box. It was warm. The cardboard sagged in my hands. Through the clear window, I could see what had been my cake. The tiers had collapsed into each other, a melted puddle of frosting and cake. The flowers were unrecognizable, their shapes dissolved into streaks of purple and white. The whole thing had liquefied in the heat, then congealed as the night cooled, leaving something that looked like it had been stepped on and scraped back together. My jacket underneath was stained with melted frosting, ruined. "Jenny," I turned. Mum stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall light. "Honey, we're so sorry. We completely forgot. We'll get you a cake tomorrow, okay? A really nice one from that bakery you like." I looked down at the ruined box in my hands. "I made this for 5 hours," I said. My voice was still that strange flat thing. "I stayed up until 3 in the morning." "I know, sweetie, and it's so thoughtful of you, but you promised this year would be different." "It will be. Tomorrow will..." "You said that last year." I was trembling now, though I wasn't sure if it was from cold or something else. And the year before, and the year before that. "That's not fair," Rebecca said from behind Mum. "You know I didn't plan to get engaged this week. Antonio surprised me." I looked at her perfect hair and her perfect face, and the ring glinting on her finger that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. "You got engaged 5 days ago," I said. "My birthday was on the calendar for 23 years. "Jenny," Dad's voice was tired. "Don't make this about Rebecca. She didn't do anything wrong." Something inside me went very quiet. "You're right," I said. "She didn't." I walked past them into the house, carried the ruined cake through the kitchen, threw the whole box into the trash. The lid wouldn't close over it, so I left it open, the melted mess visible to anyone who walked by. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "I'm sorry about the cake, but you're being really dramatic right now." I stared at those words for a long moment. Dramatic. As if 5 hours of work melted in a hot car was dramatic. As if 23 years of forgotten birthdays was dramatic. I deleted the text and turned off my phone. Then I went to my room and closed the door. I didn't cry. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and felt nothing at all. It was strange, that numbness, like my body had finally realised what my brain had known for years, that no matter what I did, how hard I tried, how much I sacrificed, I would always be the second thought, the afterthought, the one they forgot about when something more important came along, and Rebecca would always be more important. I heard them talking downstairs, heard Mum's worried tone, Dad's frustrated responses, Rebecca's defensive explanations. "She's overreacting," my sister said. "She's hurt," Mum countered. "We should have remembered." "It's just a cake," Rebecca said. "We can get her another one." "It's not about the cake," Dad said, but his voice suggested he didn't really understand what it was about either. "We'll make it up to her," Mum said. "She'll understand. She always understands." I closed my eyes. The ceiling fan hummed above me. The bedside clock ticked toward 3 in the morning. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts I didn't read. I thought about all the birthdays before this one. Thought about being 12 and having my party cancelled because Rebecca had a dance recital. Being 16 and having dinner cut short because Rebecca needed to be driven to a friend's house. Being 19 and sitting alone in a restaurant booth while they attended Rebecca's high school graduation ceremony for the 3rd time that week because she'd been chosen to give a speech. I thought about the excuses, the promises, the next times that never came. I thought about every time I'd covered a shift at the restaurant so Dad wouldn't be short-staffed. Every time I'd cancelled my plans to drive Rebecca somewhere. Every time I'd stayed quiet so Rebecca could talk. Every time I made myself smaller so she could be bigger. I thought about how tired I was. And then, very quietly, lying in the dark of my childhood bedroom with my family's voices drifting up through the floor, I felt something in my chest simply stop. Not my heart, not physically, but something essential. Some core part of me that had kept hoping, kept trying, kept believing that eventually they would see me. It just stopped. I took a breath. released it, took another. My phone buzzed again. I didn't look at it. The clock read 3:47 a.m. I felt so tired. Not sleepy, just tired. Tired of trying, tired of hoping, tired of being disappointed, tired of being invisible in my own family. The next morning, I didn't wake up. I knew this because I could see myself lying in bed, could see Mum opening my door at noon with apologies already forming on her lips, could see her face change as she got closer, could see her scream. I watched the ambulance arrive, watched the paramedics try to revive a body that had simply given up, watched Rebecca cry in the hallway, her sobs echoing through the house, watched Dad stand silent and grey-faced in the doorway, his hands shaking. I watched them find the empty pill bottle on my nightstand, the one from the prescription I'd been given months ago for anxiety and never taken because I thought I could handle things on my own. I hadn't taken them the night before either, but they didn't know that. They would never know that my body had simply decided it was done, that you could die from being forgotten, from being invisible, from having hope crushed one time too many. I watched the guilt settle over them like ash, watched Mum collapse in the hallway, sobbing about the cake, about the promises she'd broken, watched Dad sit at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, watched Rebecca pull the ruined cake from the trash and stare at it, really seeing it for the first time, seeing the hours of work, the careful details, the love I'd put into something they'd destroyed through simple neglect. And then I watched everything fade. When I opened my eyes again, I was in my bedroom. But the light was wrong. The posters on my wall were different, older versions of ones I'd replaced years ago. My desk was covered in high school textbooks. I sat up slowly. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A flip phone. I hadn't owned a flip phone since I was 18. The date on the screen read exactly 5 years earlier, 2 weeks before my 18th birthday. I sat there for a long moment, staring at that date. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. I felt calm in a way I hadn't felt in years, maybe ever, because I understood immediately what this was. A second chance, but not for them. For me. I knew what would happen in 2 weeks. I'd planned a small birthday dinner, and Rebecca would get food poisoning the day before. Mum and Dad would spend my entire birthday at the hospital with her, while I ate leftover Chinese food alone in the house. When they came home at midnight, they'd apologise and promise to celebrate the next day. But the next day, Rebecca would still be recovering, and they'd need to focus on her. We never did celebrate. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just bad luck, that they hadn't meant to forget about me. But sitting in my 18-year-old body with 23 years of memories in my head, I saw it clearly. It had never been bad luck. It had been a pattern. One I'd enabled by being understanding, by being flexible, by being the daughter who didn't need as much attention because Rebecca needed it more. I'd taught them I was optional, and they'd learned that lesson well. I got up and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was younger, rounder, my hair was longer. I looked hopeful. I didn't feel hopeful, I felt clear. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the messages. There was one from Mum from that morning. "Don't forget you're covering the dinner shift tonight. Dad needs you." I'd covered that shift. And the next one. And the one after that. I'd covered shifts through my entire senior year, sacrificing study time and social events and college applications because the family restaurant needed me. Rebecca had never worked a single shift. She was too busy with dance, too busy with friends, too busy being the daughter they were proud of. I typed back, "Can't tonight? Have plans?" I didn't have plans, but I would. When I came downstairs an hour later, Mum was in the kitchen making Rebecca's favourite breakfast. French toast with strawberries. The smell used to make my mouth water. Now it just reminded me of every morning Rebecca got her favourite while I ate cereal. "Morning, honey," Mom said without looking up. "You'll need to eat fast. Dad wants you at the restaurant by 4. "I'm not going to the restaurant," I said. Now she looked up. "What?" "I told you. I have plans." "Jenny, your father is counting on you. Michael called in sick." "He'll have to find someone else." Mom's spatula paused in mid-flip. "Excuse me? I have my own things to do, Mom. I can't always be available." "This is your family's business. You need to be a team player." I almost laughed. Team player. As if I hadn't been playing on this team my entire life while everyone else sat on the bench. "I am a team player. I've covered every shift you've ever asked me to. But not today." Rebecca appeared in the doorway, hair perfectly tousled in a way that probably took her 20 minutes. "What's going on?" "Your sister is being difficult," Mum said. "I'm being unavailable," I corrected. There's a difference." I poured myself coffee, black because we were out of the creamer Mum bought for Rebecca, and walked out before either of them could respond. I spent that afternoon in the public library researching college applications. I'd missed the deadlines for my first choice schools 5 years ago because I'd been too busy covering shifts and helping Rebecca prepare for dance competitions and being the good daughter who didn't make waves. This time, I'd make waves. I also researched apartments in other cities, jobs I could do remotely, scholarships I'd never applied for because I'd thought I needed to stay close to home. Home. The word felt hollow now. Over the next 2 weeks, I established boundaries I'd never had before. When Dad asked me to cover a shift, I checked my schedule first and said no half the time. When Mum asked me to drive Rebecca somewhere, I asked if she'd tried taking the bus. When they planned family events around Rebecca's schedule, I made my own plans and stuck to them. The first few times I said no, they looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Are you feeling okay?" Mum asked after the third refusal. "I'm fine." "You're acting strange." "I'm acting like someone with my own life." "But you've always been so helpful." "And I'm still helpful, just not at the expense of everything else." She frowned, confused. Dad was less confused and more annoyed. "I don't know what's gotten into you," he said one evening, "but this attitude needs to stop. We're a family. We help each other." "You're right," I said. "We should help each other. When was the last time anyone helped me with something I needed?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "That's different. You don't need as much help." "Why?" "Because you're more independent." "I'm independent because I had to be, because no one was paying attention to whether I needed help or not." "That's not fair, Jenny." "Isn't it?" He didn't have an answer for that. Rebecca's approach was different. She pulled me aside one afternoon, her expression worried. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. "No." "You seem mad. You've been really distant." "I'm not distant. I'm just not revolving around you anymore." Her eyes widened. "That's mean. It's honest. I never asked you to revolve around me." "You didn't have to ask. Everyone else did it for you." She stared at me, hurt and confused. "I don't understand what I did wrong." And that was the problem. She hadn't done anything wrong. She'd just existed, and that had been enough for everyone to organise their lives around her. She'd never had to fight for attention or beg for acknowledgement or watch her carefully made plans dissolve because someone else's needs were more important. She'd never had to learn that she was optional. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said finally. "But I'm not doing anything wrong either." My birthday approached. I didn't mention it, didn't drop hints, didn't plan anything. I just watched. 3 days before, Rebecca started complaining about her stomach. "I think I ate something bad," she moaned from the couch. Mum immediately went into crisis mode. "Should we take you to the doctor? Let me take your temperature. Robert, get me the thermometer." I walked past them to the kitchen, made myself dinner, and ate alone at the table while they fussed over Rebecca in the next room. I could hear their worried voices, their soothing tones, their complete focus on her discomfort. I wondered if they'd notice if I simply wasn't there. Probably not, for several hours. 2 days before my birthday, Rebecca's condition worsened. Mum took her to urgent care. They called from the waiting room. "Honey, we might be here a while," Mum said. "Can you cover tonight's shift?" "No," I said. "I have plans." "But Rebecca will be fine. It's food poisoning. She needs rest and fluids. You don't both need to be there." "She wants us here." Of course she did. And of course they'd stay. "Okay," I said. "Then stay. But I'm not covering." "Jenny, this is important. Your father needs... I know what he needs, but I also need things. And tonight, I need to not be at the restaurant." When did you become so selfish? There it was. The word I'd been waiting for. The word that would come eventually. Because asking for anything for myself was selfish in a family where everything revolved around Rebecca. "I'm not selfish, Mum. But I'm not invisible either. Not anymore." I hung up before she could argue. That evening, I went to a bookstore and bought 3 novels I'd been meaning to read. I went to a coffee shop and sat by the window and read until they closed. I drove home slowly, taking streets I'd never taken before, looking at my town like it was somewhere I was visiting, rather than somewhere I was trapped. When I got home at 11, Mum and Dad were in the kitchen, their faces tight. "There you are," Dad said. His voice was strained. "We needed you tonight." "I know." The restaurant was short-staffed. We had to turn away customers. We lost money. "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" His face was reddening. "This is our livelihood, Jenny. Our family business." "It's your business," I said calmly. "Not mine. You've worked there since you were 14. Because you asked me to, not because I wanted to." Mum's expression crumpled. "When did you become so cold?" Cold. Selfish. Difficult. The words they used when I stopped making myself small. "I'm not cold, Mum. I'm just done pretending." "Pretending what?" "That it doesn't hurt to always come second." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. "That's not true," Mum said finally. "We don't..." "Rebecca got food poisoning," I interrupted. "And you both rushed to the hospital. You called me to cover the restaurant. You didn't once ask if I could come to the hospital too. You didn't think about whether I might be worried about my sister. You just assumed I'd handle the restaurant while you handled the important thing." "She's sick," Dad said. "What did you want us to do?" "I wanted you to see me," I said quietly. "Just once, I wanted you to see me." I went upstairs before either of them could respond. Rebecca was already feeling better by the next morning. Not fully recovered, but well enough to be planning a shopping trip with her friends for the weekend. "Tomorrow's your birthday, right?" she asked at breakfast, picking at her toast. I looked up from my coffee. "Yes." "Cool. Are we doing anything?" I glanced at Mum and Dad. They both looked uncomfortable. "We thought we'd just do something quiet," Mum said carefully, "since Rebecca's still recovering." "That's fine," I said. I'm having dinner with friends anyway." That was a lie. I didn't have plans. But I would rather spend my birthday alone than watch them pretend to celebrate me while really just waiting to get back to Rebecca. "Oh," Mum said. She looked almost disappointed. "Well, we can do cake when you get home." "Don't worry about it." "Jenny, we want to celebrate with you." "You want to feel less guilty," I corrected. "There's a difference." The words hung in the air like smoke. My birthday arrived. I woke up to no text, no calls, no cards on the kitchen table. Nothing. had changed except me. I got dressed, packed a bag, and left the house at noon. Mum found me on my way out. "Where are you going?" "Out." "But it's your birthday. I was going to make you lunch." "I'll get something while I'm out." "Jenny, please, let us do something for you." I turned to face her. She looked genuinely distressed, but it was the same distress I'd seen 1,000 times, the discomfort of knowing she'd failed, not the pain of genuinely caring. "It's okay, Mum," I said. I wasn't angry, I wasn't hurt, I was just done. "I don't need you to do anything." "That's not, I want to, we all do." "Where's Dad?" She hesitated. "At the restaurant, the lunch rush." "And Rebecca?" "She went to meet friends. She's feeling much better now. But she'll be back for dinner. We all will." Of course. Dad was at the restaurant, Rebecca was with friends, and I was expected to wait around until they had time for me. I nodded slowly. "Right. 6 o'clock, Mum said. "We'll have a nice dinner. I'll make your favourite." "Okay." I left. I drove to the state park an hour away and spent the afternoon hiking trails I'd never explored. I sat by a lake and watched the water and felt the sun on my face. I bought myself a slice of birthday cake from a grocery store and ate it sitting on a bench, and it was mediocre and probably cost $3. But it was mine, and I'd chosen it, and no one could ruin it. No one had forgotten it in a hot car. No one had let it melt while they celebrated someone else. At 6:30, my phone buzzed. "Mum, where are you? We're waiting for dinner." Me. "I'll be late. Start without me." Mum. "But it's your birthday dinner." Me. "It's okay, I already ate." The texts came rapidly after that. Mum saying they'd wait, Dad saying they needed to talk, Rebecca saying I was being childish. I turned off my phone. I didn't go home until 10. When I walked in, the dining room table was set with my favourite foods, all of them cold now. Mum, Dad and Rebecca sat in the living room, the TV on but no one watching it. "Jenny!" Mum stood up immediately. "Where have you been?" "Out." "We waited for you for 4 hours. I told you to start without me." "But it's your birthday," Rebecca said. She sounded genuinely confused. "We made you dinner." I looked at the three of them, at their baffled expressions, at their hurt feelings and their confusion about why I wasn't grateful for this dinner they'd thrown together at the last minute. This dinner Dad had left the restaurant to attend, and Rebecca had cut her day short for, and I felt nothing. "Thank you," I said. "That was thoughtful." "That's it?" Dad's voice rose. "That's all you have to say? We've been sitting here waiting for you and you can't even apologise?" "Apologise for what?" "For being selfish. For making your birthday about punishing us." I looked at him for a long moment. "My birthday isn't about punishing you, Dad. It's just not about you at all, for once." I went upstairs. I heard them talking in low voices. Heard Mum's worried murmurs and Dad's frustrated responses and Rebecca's bewildered questions. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand, because to them, they'd tried. They'd made dinner. They'd waited for me. They'd done their part. But I'd already died once from being their afterthought. I'd already spent 5 years watching them forget about me again and again, while I made excuses for them and pretended it didn't hurt. I wasn't going to do it again. The next few years were different. I applied to colleges across the country and got accepted to 3 of them. I chose the one furthest from home, a small liberal arts school in Oregon, almost 3,000 miles away. When the acceptance letter came, I didn't tell them right away. I sat with it in my room, reading it over and over, feeling something like hope kindle in my chest. When I finally showed Mum, she cried, "Oregon? That's so far away." "I know." "What about the state school? You got accepted there too. You could commute." I don't want to commute. But the family will be fine without me, I finished. You've proven that already. She flinched. That's not fair. It's honest. Dad tried a different approach. Do you know how expensive out-of-state tuition is? We can't afford that. I got a scholarship, and I'll work. You could work at the restaurant and go to school here. Save money. I'm going to Oregon, Dad. He stared at me, jaw tight. Fine. But don't expect us to help you when you realise you've made a mistake. I didn't expect them to help me at all. I'd learnt that lesson already. I stopped covering shifts at the restaurant entirely. When Dad called me unavailable and ungrateful, I didn't argue. I just stayed unavailable. I stopped planning my life around Rebecca's schedule. When they asked me to come home for her dance competitions or her graduation ceremonies or her various achievements, I came when it worked for me and didn't when it didn't. The first time I missed one of Rebecca's performances, Mum called me in tears. How could you not come? She asked for you specifically. I had an exam. You could have rescheduled. No, I couldn't. Your sister needed you. She had you and Dad. That was enough. It's not the same. You're her sister. And she's mine. She's never rearranged her life for me. Mum went quiet. She's younger. She doesn't understand. She's 17, Mum. Not 7. She understands. She just doesn't care. That's cruel. It's true. The phone calls became less frequent after that. When they did call, it was usually to ask me for something. Cover a shift during holiday break, drive Rebecca somewhere, help with some project. I said no more often than I said yes. You've changed, Mum said during one holiday visit. Yes, I agreed. You used to be so warm, so giving. I still am, just not at my own expense. Family isn't supposed to be about keeping score. You're right, I said, but it's also not supposed to be about one person doing all the giving while everyone else takes. She didn't have an answer for that. I graduated college with honours, got a job in Seattle at a marketing firm, found an apartment with a view of the water and a roommate who became a real friend, built a life that had nothing to do with them. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. My boss noticed when I worked late. My friends remembered my birthday without prompting. My roommate asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. I learned what it felt like to matter. When Rebecca got engaged to Antonio 3 years later, earlier than in my first life as if the timeline had shifted slightly, they called to tell me about the wedding plans. We'd love for you to be a bridesmaid, Rebecca said, her voice bright with excitement. I'll think about it. You'll think about it? Her voice rose. I'm your sister. I know, and I'll think about it. The silence on the other end was heavy. Then, are you seriously going to punish me for things that happened years ago? I'm not punishing you. I'm just not automatically saying yes anymore. It's my wedding, Jenny. I know, and I'm genuinely happy for you. But being your sister doesn't mean I have to be in your wedding party. Mom said you do this. She said you'd find a way to make my wedding about you. I almost laughed. Your wedding is about you, Rebecca. That's the point. But my life is about me. And for once, I'm going to let it be. I didn't end up being a bridesmaid. I attended the wedding as a guest, sat in the back and left early. When Mum pulled me aside and asked why I was being so distant, I told her the truth. Because you made me distant, Mum. You just didn't notice until I stopped pretending I wasn't. We never meant to make you feel that way. I know, but you did anyway. Intent doesn't erase impact. Can't we move past this? Can't we start over? I looked at her carefully made-up face, at the tears gathering in her eyes, at the genuine confusion there. We can't start over, I said gently, but we can start from here, which means accepting that I'm different now, that our relationship is different now. I don't like this version of you. The words should have hurt. Maybe they would have 5 years ago. Now they just felt honest. I do, I said. For the first time in my life, I actually like myself. I left the reception early and drove back to Seattle that night, even though I'd originally planned to stay the weekend. The drive was long and dark, but I felt lighter with every mile I put between myself and that town. 5 years after my second chance, I turned 23 for the second time. I was living in a different city, working a job I loved, surrounded by friends who actually remembered my birthday without prompting. I didn't tell my family what day it was. Didn't call, didn't text. I woke up to messages from my roommate and co-workers and friends I'd made at the gym. Woke up to a small gift on the kitchen counter from my roommate. A mug that said "World's okayest person." That made me laugh. At noon, my phone rang. Mum. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 2, at 4, at 6, at 8. I finally answered. Jenny, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. I've been busy. It's your birthday. We wanted to call you this morning, but we weren't sure if you'd be awake. Are you celebrating? Are you with friends? I looked around my apartment. At the decorations my roommate had surprised me with. At the cake sitting on the counter. At the life I'd built without them. Yes, I said. I am. We wish we could be there. We wanted to send you something, but we weren't sure what you'd like anymore. You've become so independent. I have. We miss you, honey. You never come home anymore. I come home sometimes. Not often. And when you do, you leave as soon as you can. She wasn't wrong. We're proud of you, Mom continued. You know that, right? Everything you've accomplished, everything you've become. Your job, your apartment, your whole life out there. We really are proud. Thank you. Maybe you could come home for Thanksgiving. Rebecca's planning a big dinner. She'd love to see you. We all would. Maybe, I said. I'll let you know. Jenny, I need to go, Mom. My friends are waiting. Okay. We love you, sweetie. I know. After I hung up, I sat with my phone in my hands for a long moment. They missed me. They were proud of me. They wanted me to come home. But they still organised everything around Rebecca. Still made her the centre. Still expected me to rearrange my life to be part of theirs. Some things never changed. But I had. That evening, my friends took me to dinner. We went to a nice restaurant overlooking the water, ordered too much food, laughed too loudly. They gave me presents they'd carefully chosen based on things I'd mentioned in passing. A book I'd wanted to read, a print for my apartment, a necklace in my favourite colour. Make a wish, Murphy, my roommate said, lighting the candles on the cake she'd made. I closed my eyes. 5 years ago, I would have wished for my family to see me, to remember me, to choose me. Now I wished for nothing. I had everything I needed. I blew out the candles. When I got home that night, drunk on wine and happiness and the rare feeling of being truly celebrated, I found a voicemail from Dad. His voice was gruff, uncomfortable with emotion. Hey, kiddo. Just wanted to say happy birthday. Your mum told me I should call. And she's right. I should have called earlier. Should have called every year earlier. I know we haven't always been great at this, at showing you we care. But we do. We really do. I hope you know that. Call us back when you can. I saved the message, but didn't call back that night, or the next day. I called 3 days later when I felt ready. Jenny, Dad answered on the second ring. I was starting to think you weren't going to call back. I was busy. Right, of course. A pause. Did you have a good birthday? I did. Good, that's good. Another pause. Your mum's been worried about you. I'm fine, Dad. Are you? You seem different. I am different. Is that because of us? Because of the way things were before? I considered lying. Considered making it easier for him. But I'd spent too many years making things easier for everyone else. Yes, I said simply. He was quiet for a long moment. I wish you'd talk to us. Really talk to us. Instead of just pulling away. I did talk to you. For years, you didn't listen. That's not... He stopped, sighed. Maybe you're right. Maybe we didn't listen. But we're listening now. Are you? We're trying. Trying. The word people used when they wanted credit for intention, without the work of follow-through. Okay, I said. Will you come home for Thanksgiving? I don't know yet. Jenny, please, give us a chance to do better. I thought about that, thought about the years of missed birthdays and forgotten promises and being invisible in my own family. Thought about dying from their neglect and being given a second chance I hadn't asked for, but had taken anyway. Thought about the person I'd become when I stopped waiting for them to change and started changing myself. I'll think about it, I said finally. 3 days later, a package arrived. Inside was a photo album Mum had put together. Pictures of me throughout my life. Baby pictures, school pictures, pictures I didn't even remember being taken. On the first page, she'd written, "To our Jenny. We're sorry we didn't see you enough when you were right in front of us. We're trying to see you now. We're trying to be the family you deserved. We know it's late. We know it might be too late, but we want you to know we're trying. Love, Mum." I flipped through the pages slowly. There I was at 5, gap-toothed and grinning in the backyard. At 10, serious and bookish at the kitchen table. At 15, trying to look grown up in my school photo. At 18, about to leave for college. There were pictures of Rebecca too, of course, but for once I wasn't cropped out of the frame or relegated to the background. For once, I was centered, visible. For once, someone had looked at me and decided I was worth documenting. I set the album aside and cried. Not from sadness, not from anger, just from the strange, complicated feeling of being seen too late. I called Mum that evening. "Did you get the album?" she asked immediately. "Yes. Do you like it?" "It's beautiful, Mum. I've been going through old photos, so many of you. I didn't realise I'd taken so many." Her voice cracked. "I didn't realise I'd forgotten so many either." I didn't say anything. "I know we weren't good at showing you we cared," she continued. "Rebecca needed so much attention with her dance and school and everything, and you were always so self-sufficient, so easy. We thought that meant you didn't need us as much." She paused. "We were wrong, so wrong. And I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm so, so sorry." The apology hung between us like a bridge. I could cross it, or I could stay where I was. "I know you are," I said quietly. "Can we try again? Can we do better?" I thought about that question for a long time. Could they do better? Maybe. Would they? Probably not consistently. Probably not in the ways I needed. But I'd already died and been reborn and spent 5 years learning to live without their validation. I'd already built a life where I came first, where I was seen, where I was enough. I didn't need them to fix what they'd broken. It was already healed. "You can try," I said finally, "but I'm not coming back, Mum. Not the way I was before. I'm not going to be the daughter who disappears so Rebecca can shine. I'm not going to be the one who sacrifices so everyone else is comfortable. I'm not asking you to. You might not mean to, but you will, It's habit, for all of us. Then we'll break the habit. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. Maybe. We'll see. We talked for 2 hours. It was the longest conversation we'd had in years. She asked about my job, my apartment, my friends, my life. She listened to my answers. Really listened. When we finally hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly. Hope was too fragile, too dependent on other people's choices. But peace. 3 months later, I flew home for Thanksgiving. It was Rebecca's big dinner, just like Mum had said. But when I arrived, they'd set the table with place cards, and mine was at the head, not the side. "You're our guest of honour," Dad said awkwardly, "since we don't see you enough." Rebecca hugged me tight. "I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure you would." "Me too," I said honestly. The dinner was pleasant. They asked about my life, my work, my plans. They included me in conversations. They made space for me. It felt strange, like trying on old clothes that no longer fit quite right. But it also felt okay, because I knew now that I didn't need this. I didn't need their attention or their validation or their guilt-driven effort to include me. I'd already learned to celebrate myself. After dinner, as I helped Mum clear the table, she said quietly, "I found something last week, in the garage." "What?" She disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a box. White cardboard with a clear window. My heart stopped. It was the box from the cake, the one they'd left in the car, the one that had melted into nothing. Except this was 5 years earlier. This cake hadn't been made yet. "I bought this for your 18th birthday," Mum said, softly. "I was going to surprise you with a cake, but then Rebecca got sick, and we spent your whole birthday at the hospital, and I never got around to making it. I found the box in the garage yesterday, and I remembered. I remembered everything I'd forgotten that day." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry I never made you that cake, Jenny. I'm sorry I never made you feel as important as you are." I looked at the empty box in her hands, at the space where a cake should have been. "It's okay, Mum," I said, and I meant it. I learned to make my own. That evening, Mum brought out a cake she'd actually made herself. A simple 1-layer chocolate cake, slightly lopsided, the frosting uneven. "I know it's not your birthday," she said, "but I thought we could celebrate anyway, make up for all the times we didn't." I looked at that imperfect cake, at the candles arranged on top, at my family gathered around waiting for me to make a wish. And I thought about another cake. One I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. to make. One I'd decorated with careful hands and hopeful heart. One they'd left in the car overnight until it melted into nothing. That cake was gone. That version of me was gone. That life where I broke myself trying to earn their love was gone. This cake was just a cake. This moment was just a moment. But it was theirs to give and mine to accept or refuse. I blew out the candles. I didn't make a wish. I didn't need to. I'd already given myself everything I'd ever wanted. When I left 2 days later, Mum cried. "You'll come back for Christmas?" she asked. "I'll try." "We love you, Jenny. So much." "I know, Mum." And I did know. They loved me. They'd always loved me. They'd just loved me, carelessly, thoughtlessly, with the assumption that I'd always be there, always be understanding, always be willing to wait. I wasn't willing to wait anymore, but I also wasn't angry anymore. I'd died once from their neglect, been reborn, learned to live without them at the centre of my world. And in that space I'd created, in that distance, I'd found something better than their belated attention. I'd found myself. The drive back to Seattle felt like coming home. My real home. The one I'd built brick by brick, choice by choice in Ardulan. by choice, boundary by boundary. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate. Made too much pasta. Get home soon before I eat it all. I smiled and drove faster. Behind me, my family's house disappeared in the rearview mirror. Ahead of me, my life waited. I'd spent 23 years trying to make them see me. And then, I'd spent 5 years learning to see myself. In the end, that was the only vision that mattered. The cake they'd left in the car had melted, destroyed, forgotten. But I had not. I had been reborn. And this time, I would never again need anyone's permission to celebrate my own existence. I would never again bake a cake for people who would leave it in the heat. I would never again wait for acknowledgement that would never come. I would never again make myself small so others could feel big. I had died invisible. I had been reborn visible to myself, and that made all the difference.